Hey everyone, I'm Derek Malikian,
I'm Amanda Moore.
and welcome to our privacy podcast called No Cookies for You. Well, welcome everyone. This is our very first episode of No Cookies for You. Thank you for listening, even if it's just one person, and that one person is Amanda. Um, that is awesome. But we really wanted to put this together to give folks and listeners just a foundational understanding of data privacy and take the approach of making it fun along the way. And yeah.
Well, what I have found working in privacy as, both of us, work in this space is there I haven't found tactical advice out there. And it goes from the same thing applies to seminars and conferences. And you really can't get into details because you're trying to level set with the audience or making sure it's meaningful to everyone, but then it ends up being meaningful to no one. So I really wanted to start this podcast. We really wanted to start it to talk about the nuts and bolts of privacy. There's a lot of general advice, but I want to tell our listeners how to get things done. So that's overall like my goal of doing this podcast, and hopefully other people find value in it.
Yeah, Amanda, if you don't mind me asking, like, why do you think there's not a lot of like in-depth, you know, tactical advice? Is it just hard to find? Like what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, everyone's in a different place in this space. I think of where I was 6, 7 years ago to where I am now, and it's trying to reach a large audience um, who may not be on the same level of understanding. So I think it's unfortunately presenters and podcasters trying to reach a large target audience, and they're really not helping the people that are living and breathing it, right? And telling them how to do it. It's more high level or getting other people's opinions, which has value in and of itself. And it's great to hear other perspectives. But I think there's a lot of focus on getting other people's hot takes as opposed to saying how to fix the problems.
Cool. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And yeah, thanks for diving into that a little bit. Um, Something cool about our show as well is that if you notice by the name, Amanda, it's like no cookies for you. And I know you and I spoke about this, but every episode we're going to be picking a cookie and kind of doing a review of that cookie along with the episode. Um, so the cookie that I'm reviewing today, and probably one of my favorites, is Oreo cookies. And what I like to do is I like to put them in the freezer, and then I like to let them freeze and then I eat them. So I picked up the Oreos minis this morning, had them sitting in the freezer all day. So I'll be enjoying those during the show, and I think we'll do a little bit of a review later on as well. But Amanda, I know you mentioned you may have stopped by the store, picked something up special. Can you enlighten us on the cookie you chose?
I did. So there's a little bakery here in Utah. We love our sugar. There's cookie shops and soda shops. And so this was a cookie and soda shop. It's called Twisted Sugar, and they make a peanut butter cookie with Nutella topping. Um, so I'm going to try that today. If anyone from Twisted Sugar is listening, please sponsor our show. I'm going to just tag you in our show. I would love free cookies. So I'm not above taking payment in that in form of um, so let's start with career journey. What do you think? I mean, Derek, do you want to tell us a little bit about your career journey and what you steps you took and all the jobs you had?
Yeah, definitely. And, Amanda, I know you and I have, touched on this in the past. I kind of have a weird background. When I was younger, like I set a goal of wanting to live the most interesting life possible. And now that I look back, okay, maybe I am doing some strange things. So taking a step back, when I was a very, very young man, um, I used to be okay at baseball. So I went to a junior college to play, ended up then going to a 4-year school to play, and ended up getting a contract to go play overseas in Europe and then Australia and back to Europe for a few years. Um, Great experience, just great seeing how other people live. And the best thing I took from it was like, no matter where you go, there's nice people that like care about you and you make friends. So that was something that, really stuck with me, during that experience. Then I realized like, hey, I'm not going to make it back to the major leagues and get, a multi-million-dollar deal. And there was other things I wanted to do with my life. Came back stateside. And then I ended up getting a job working on cruise ships, doing like subcontracting work on industrial laundry equipment. So I would go ride with a ship for maybe like a week or two, um, you know, get off on a port, take a couple of weeks off, then go back on for another week. So, really got to travel a lot more doing that as well. Did that for about 7 years. At the same time, I was going to school full time for computer science, graduated from Georgia State University, and then got a job looking in databases and servers all day long. And then I get this message on LinkedIn about this company called OneTrust. And, I was kind of looking around, trying to find something else. Ended up interviewing with them. I really had no idea like what it was all about. And then when I got on board, like I just fell in love with it, like almost immediately. And, really started to see like the data privacy space. And I started working there like right around when GDPR came out. So like it was exploding and I knew it was like an opportunity to learn something that, I felt was important, people's privacy. And man, there's something about the people in this space, like everybody's so cool. Like I've never met somebody in the space where I'm like, man, I just don't like that person. Um, so yeah, I worked at OneTrust for a couple of years and then, decided to go out on my own and start a business myself. But yeah, just love the privacy space. And, I don't claim to be an expert. There's new regulations coming all the time. Love reading about it, love building like the tech side of privacy, especially like, helping organizations and, um, writing code, Python, JavaScript, playing with AI, all that good stuff. But it's been a long journey for me. I definitely have, I have other goals, in life, and privacy plays a big part in that. So there's a pretty big rant there, Amanda, but hopefully it gives, listeners some context into like, hey, you can come from anywhere and, whatever you put your mind to, you can do it, right? You can come from any background and, jump in the privacy space. And yeah, so it's been great. Amanda, I understand, you've been in the space a long time, pretty well known in the space. So I'd love to, get some context on like, how in the world did Amanda get into data privacy?
Oh, that's well, I have to start when I graduated college. 2008, 2009, something like that. And it was during the Great Recession. From Cal State Long Beach, go Dirtbags. Woo. And so no one was hiring. And it was kind of like it is now, where it's jobs are not easy to come by, especially entry level jobs. And I graduated with a degree in economics. And so I just took a contracting job that I was terrible at. So I was hired as an administrative assistant, and I was like, oh, how hard can answering phones be? So I answered the phone, but my boss would be out golfing, and I didn't know that I was supposed to say, hey, so and so, he's not available right now, as opposed to he's not here, he hasn't shown up yet. So I was just 20-something-year-old, brutally honest, young lady. And so that job, I stayed in the company, but that guy wanted to get rid of me. So he pawned me off to some IT folks where I learned disaster recovery documentation. So, I knew nothing about IT other than I know how to use a computer. And so I interviewed applications and started writing disaster recovery documentation. And then I would like test it. So I would do like failover scenarios and test the documentation. So I knew if, there was an earthquake. At that time, we lived in Southern California. And so if there's an earthquake, there's a failover in another state, in Georgia, actually. The failover was in Georgia, and those people would be able to stand up the servers again. So that lasted about 3 years, maybe 4. I played in that contracting space for a short time. And then in 2013, I got an offer from DirecTV as a contractor, and DirecTV needed a support analyst in IT again. So I used my IT experience to get this job at DirecTV. And so I was doing capacity planning, and then I got hired full time, and then that evolved into my launch into privacy 2018, 2019. I was kind of a flexible worker inside of the organization, and I had helped on a project where, I get all the distressed projects, and so, I had experience with this supervisor of mine who has made a huge impact in my career, Dustin. And so Dustin's like, hey, I need some help with this CCPA project. And he really didn't know anything about it or what it was, but he's like, can you just figure it out? And so I figured it out. And when I found it, I'm like, oh, this is like a puzzle. And I love puzzles. And so that's how I started working in privacy, and then working my way up. And I absolutely love it because it's different every day. And now as AI comes in and is kind of invading in the same space, and there's like a new set of laws and challenges to address. I think it's just such an exciting time to be in this space. And I know I can see how far we've come in 5-6 years. Like, I can't imagine what the next like 5-6 years is going to look like.
Oh yeah, that's That's a really cool background. You went to Long Beach State, you said?
Yeah.
They have a pretty good baseball program, apparently, don't they?
Yeah. My brother he was going to be on the team, and then he ended up staying at Fresno State, or going to Fresno State instead. But yeah, they do have a good baseball team.
Awesome.
I like it's so great. I loved living there. I mean, I love living here more, but Long Beach is kind of a cool community. Like everyone's just normal people, kind of. I mean, they're type of weird, but you know.
It's more laid back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just from like what I said and like hearing what you said about, career backgrounds, and I feel like I've heard other folks talk about this, but like I've noticed that like a lot of people in the privacy space have like very diverse backgrounds. Like it almost like you have to have almost like multiple skill sets to kind of
Mm-hmm.
do it. Yeah, just something that popped in my head, and just listening to you and myself, I'm like, yeah, we do come from pretty diverse backgrounds.
It's amazing. I don't think there are a few people who are like, they started in this space, right? Everyone has like an early story of where they began their career. And it's usually not privacy, because privacy is very fresh in the US, and Europe is just a couple years before us. So I think kids who now privacy is a career option, but anyone who's working in 2008 probably it wasn't working in privacy. If they were lawyers, they may have had like compliance areas, and that's how they got in. But it's hard to find a person that has been in privacy. I know a couple for like more than 15 years, right? So someone who's like really grown up in the space. Um, yeah, it just goes to show you can come from baseball and administrative assistant and be a mover and shaker in privacy.
You could be a dirt bag to a chief privacy officer.
Right? Right? Goals.
Cool. I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to ask about the cookie that you got, and how does it taste? Like, is it,
Well, I haven't tried it
we,
yet.
we need some kind of review for the
Yeah.
listener.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably the most valuable part of our show, quite honestly. It's very moist. Peanut butter is
And what's the name of the place?
a twisted sugar.
Is it like a small business or a chain?
It's a small business. I like supporting small businesses. And there's a bunch of like we love our sugar here. I think the peanut butter cookie would have been fine by itself. Yeah, that's what I'll get next week. The Nutella is fabulous. This is gonna sound weird. It's a little sweet for me. It's just too much sweetness. And not that sweet of a person. Yeah, I typically don't eat anything with chocolate on it, but oatmeal raisin is my favorite cookie. And they only had an oatmeal raisin chocolate chip, and I was like, I just want a regular oatmeal raisin cookie. How about you? How are the mini Oreos?
I like them very much. I like them from like, I'm like pretending to be healthy by getting the mini ones, but I'll eat the whole entire box. And will ruin any kind of, hey, Derek, let's be healthy. Huge fan of the double stuff Oreos, especially like having them in the freezer. I think we were joking around about this like a couple of weeks ago. Like I always dreamed that they'd come out with just like, I want an Oreo cookie that's like quadruple the like stuff in the middle. And then they came out with like the mega, I think it's like mega stuffed ones or something like that. I ended up getting them and like, I think it was just too much. And it's kind of like, be careful what you wish for. Maybe it was a bad batch. Like, maybe I'd go to the grocery store for round 2 or something. But yeah, always been a fan of Oreos. Like I try not to get them because if I do, like they just stare at me. I'm like, hey man, like I need you to eat these things and eat them all like right away.
I understand that.
I was like, oh yeah, big fan.
Like when we were in person the other day or a couple weeks ago, I brought lemonades to the office, and the lemonade Girl Scout cookies, I have zero self-control. Zero. Like, so I actually just don't buy cookies. I mean, I'm going off on a tangent here, but there's these little, what is it called? The ice cream cone drumsticks. Yeah, little mini drumsticks. And I bought some, and my husband's like, why are you putting this stuff in our house? And so now I have like trays of these little mini drumsticks, and it's a perfect little ice cream cone. So yeah, I typically don't buy sweets because it's a problem. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I concur.
All right. So how do you go about explaining to people what you do for work?
That's such a great question. The best way, like when I meet people and like try to describe it to them, is I always say like, hey, you ever been on a website and this little thing pops up saying we have cookies? They're always like, oh yeah. And then I just tell them like, that's a part of what I do, like a small part of it. But typically I find like that resonates with people the most because like, I mean, let's face it, it's pretty much almost on every website
Yeah, everyone
nowadays.
needs that cookie banner
Yeah.
for sure.
So, yeah, that usually goes over pretty well. But if I start getting like, yeah, I help them with data mapping and like privacy rights automation, they're just like, it's, um, and then they just, slowly walk away. So I'll try to stop after the the cookie banner
Before
popping
the
up.
eyes goes over and that blank stare, they're like, ah.
But yeah, Amanda, what about you? I'm interested to hear like, how you explain it to folks.
I usually explain it from a legal perspective. So I live in Utah. Oh, Utah has a privacy law. So if I'm talking to someone in Utah, I'm like, hey, Utah passed this privacy law. I make sure that my company follows the law. So, and then I'll go into like, as a Utah customer, you have different rights. You can ask companies for your information, to delete your information, to correct your information. So I take it as an opportunity to educate people on their rights. And I think it's such a different environment. Like you don't have to explain it to a European what it is because they have the opt-in like model, and privacy is front and center, as where in the US we have an opt-out model and privacy is not front and center. So people, I find, oftentimes don't even know that they have rights. And so yeah, I take it as an opportunity to not only connect what I do, but then also help educate them on their rights as consumers.
Yeah, I really like that approach, actually, like taking like the legal route, and like kind of teaching at the same time. And, whenever, like, I like meeting Europeans, like whenever they're visiting or something, because then I could be like GDPR and they're like, oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Right.
But yeah, you bring up like a really valid point. A lot of folks don't know. And, usually like when I'm explaining to people about like the cookie banner, I'll, try and be like, hey, like you should pay attention and like at least read and like make an informed decision of like, hey, do you want to consent, to these kind of things? So, very interesting. I mean, do you think it's just in the United States, it's like, it's not front and center? Like, I don't think I've seen like TV commercials, or I've seen like billboards and like Apple phone be like, we care about privacy, but it doesn't go into like, well, here's how you actually action like your rights.
Yeah, there's no real effort to educate the public, right? So, because we're not asking for consent to track people on the internet. We are asking, when that banner comes up, we are asking them, do you want us not to track you? As opposed, but it's so easy just to put accept all cookies if you don't know to turn off the targeting cookies. But then people wonder, I see all kinds of fun posts on like social media, um, saying, hey, post this message and it will reduce your advertising, and it's just a total ploy. Someone starts this chain, says repost and you will have less Facebook ads. So like, that's not how it works. So opt out and you'll have less targeted advertising and creepy ads from Amazon following you around. Just opt out.
I had like this weird vision of like, especially someone like you really doesn't know. And like, because we're eating cookies, like they may think like, oh yeah, like I'll get Oreo cookies if I like accept all this.
No, you won't get Oreo cookies, but you won't get creepy ads if you reject all.
I'll probably get advertisements or something for Oreos the next like couple days or something. Who knows?
They're always listening. Should we take this home for our listeners? Like, just, I'm going to hit what is called a home run or a ground home double, or I don't know. My brother would be so embarrassed. If my brother's listening to this, he would be mortified that I have zero, like all the baseball terms. I'm trying, Derek.
All good. Like it's, I go to my like daughter's, soccer game and, yell touchdown or like, off, false start and stuff. Just to be
icing.
But, yeah, I'm sure the listeners are, tired of hearing us and just go on complete tangents. But yeah, just a quick recap for the listeners. Thank you very much, for listening. Feel free to reach out to us. If you have questions or provide feedback. Just a little recap. We learned about Amanda's journey, learned about my journey. We learned about a great cookie place in Utah that I will need to visit if I ever go to Utah. We learned about Oreo cookies in the freezer. Please try it if you have not. And yeah, please listen.
Talk about our favorite cookies.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad.
That's that's some of the most valuable information that I feel that we have offered in this episode. So I don't want to gloss over it.
My bad.
So do we have any recommendations for our listeners? I think just listen to the next episode and
Yeah.
really dive into privacy.
Yeah. Listen to the next episode and read the cookie banners and preference centers when they pop up.
All right. Thanks for listening. Have a
Yeah.
great day, folks.